Let's look at some not so basic story basics. Stories and examples are best when they come from your experience. Your audience has a chance to relive them from their perspective. Here are 5 important points to make your stories credible. Point 1. Make your story part of your own experience. If you tell a story that belongs to the world, in other words, it is well known from a best-selling book, or they've been teaching it for years in the Dale Carnegie course, you lose your credibility. If your story's in the public domain, your audience is familiar with it and knows it does not come from your experience. Your entire presentation then is flavored that it's not original, fresh, or leading edge. I'll never forget getting off a plane and meeting a client who said, "Patricia, I just heard Barbara Bush speak. She told you Bobby Lewis' story." At the time, I imagined Barbara Bush sitting in bed in Houston with the book Chicken Soup for the Soul, putting together a speech. That is where my story was published, and I assume the way it worked into her speech. After speaking at the Reagan Speechwriting Conference, I realized the speechwriter was preparing her speech for her. As good as my Bobby Lewis story is, Barbara Bush and her speechwriter shortchanged her audience. She has lived a fascinating life. Don't you think the audience wanted to hear her own stories, not mine? Based on their overwhelming success, I do not recommend you tell stories from Chicken Soup of the Soul series unless you wrote the story. Does that mean you can't repeat a story you heard? Well, give credit to where the story came from. Never pretend it happened to you. You can mention and even retell a good story you heard from a speaker, your boss, or an industry expert, as long as you don't claim it was from your life experience, and then you tie into your experience that builds on that point that you were making. You owe it to your audience to use stories from your life. Time for a couple of questions. Are you ready? When you tell stories that are in the public domain,